It's like he's asking himself, why? I don't agree with any of this. So why did I vote yes? Doublelift and what's been going on with the whole ridiculous Players Association stuff. Because we did a show, The Four Horsemen, where we had the head of the LCS Players Association on. We talked a lot about it. I did an episode of the Esports Gospel, again, available on Substack, where I take a deep look into it and why it's happening and where I think it's going to go, essentially. But just for those who don't know about it, I'll just bring you up to speed. I'll give you the Cliff's Notes. Super easy, really. The Players Association agreed to go on, well, not strike, we can't call it that because that's legally associated with union action, but they agreed to walk out on the LCS, the American League of Legends League, and not participate because they wanted some changes made to the Academy League, NACL. But that being said, more importantly than any of that was the fact that Riot had made material changes to the agreements around the Academy League. Most notably, that the orgs in LCS now no longer had a mandatory requirement to field an Academy team, and they didn't consult the Players Association first, which is something Riot had agreed to do in the past, and as a result, they had told a lie. And so, because it was a lie, the Players Association were like, look, we've got to do something because we have to show them that we're serious, you know? So I get it. And that's more what it's about than anything else anyone else has said. Now, at the end of the day, I have said multiple times to people that if you deal with Riot, it doesn't matter what you do in Riot. Riot don't... There's this word, another buzzword gets bandied around all the time. Ecosystem. We talk about the esports ecosystem. Riot talk about the esports ecosystem. Now, an ecosystem is like, it's a sort of collection of disparate parts of nature that, when assembled, work together in some sort of relative harmony. There's a self-regulating element to it. And so, you might see people who make, well, look, okay, why is Richard using this example? Yeah, I'm a fucking insomniac, aren't I? So like you insomniacs out there with your late night ASMR videos, yeah, I do go full send on the YouTube algorithm and see where I end up. And at 4 a.m, yeah, I am watching a video called I Could Seal This Terrarium Forever and it would, the life in it would never die or whatever. And I've seen it. But anyway, the point being, basically an ecosystem is, for example, you put down some soil and you put down some plants, and the plants create oxygen, and then you put in some insects, and the insects eat the plants, but not too much of the plants because, they get full. But then you also have to put in some apex predators to eat the insects to regulate their population, or the plants will die, but you can only put in a few of them, and then you have to put in something that's poisonous for the apex predator, and and you do all of this, and you just create, and that's how an ecosystem works. It's an ecosystem. It's in balance, and Riot Games don't give a fuck about that. Their ecosystem is right. Everything else in it is fair game to be killed by them, the ultimate apex predator, anytime they want, and that's it. And everything else is expendable, and they've operated like that pretty much since they came into esports in 2010. 2009 was the League of Legends beta year. So, and why it keeps surprising people, I don't know. People keep being surprised by this. They keep going like, oh, bloody hell, Riot Games have got a bit overzealous there. Yes, overzealous is an appropriate term. They operate like a cult. They were founded as a cult, essentially, like the Riot Pledge, what was it, the Summoner's Code, everyone has to play the game, everyone has to have good chat logs, you have to wear a uniform, you go to events, you get special treatment. It's a joke. Like, the whole thing's been a joke since the start. And when it was all exposed that, oh yeah, it turns out unsavory people are attracted to those kind of environments. Well, who fucking knew? Oh yeah, just all of human history would sort of teach us that lesson. But whatever. The key thing with Riot is just control. It's just control. It's always been control. If you're a caster, they'll fuck with you. They'll fuck with you on principle. If you're a host, they'll fuck with you. They'll fuck with you on principle. If you're a journalist, they'll definitely fuck with you on principle. And if you're a player, they take great pleasure in reminding you every single day they make the video game that enables you to have a career. And let's also be real. One of the things that we're blessed with in CSGO is our pros generally are a little bit older, and I've got to say it, you know, they're a little bit more worldly, a little bit more educated, dare I say. When I look at, like, the average LCS pro, I mean, think about this, as we're going to get to. Doublelift is like the king of the LCS pros, isn't he? Well, okay. So, you know, it's absolutely staggering to me. Yeah, they're not bright. Their prospects aren't great. If they weren't good at a video game, I don't know where they would end up. Certainly, they would probably need to do some catch-up stuff before they could even think about a serious college education. So, yeah, Riot know this. They know they've got you by the balls, and every time they've got you by the balls, they fucking twist. I don't know why people are surprised, but that's what's happened here. Basically, Riot Games said, well, okay, we see your list of demands, LCS Players Association, and we raise you absolutely fucking none of them. And also, if the walkout lasts longer than 2 weeks, we will cancel the whole season. And if you have to cancel the whole season, we're going to have to stop NA teams going to Worlds. Oh, and spoiler, behind the scenes, we're threatening the orgs with fines and being removed from the league if they can't get the players to get their shit together and actually play on the LCS days. So, what now? What now, motherfucker? Right? And so, what now, motherfucker, indeed. It turns out they're like, listen, we're going to have some talks and blah, blah, blah. Now, when you're in a Mexican standoff with Riot, you have to at least intimate you might be willing to draw on them, which, of course, no one is, because let's also be real. The entire esports ecosystem is just populated by greedy fucking losers, like just greedy losers who just want to make money, and they just want to fucking, you know, like just... there's no principle at stake. They don't really care about any of that stuff. They'll take any sponsor. They'll promote anything. Oh, well, what's this? A new arsenic sponsorship? Yeah, all right, yeah, we'll promote that to kids. They don't give a fuck. They just want to make money, and they don't want to rock the boat too much. And the only time they rock the boat is if they just want to get a bit more money, really. This is like kind of a rare occasion, because this does seem to be predicated on principle, at least, rather than sheer out-and-out greed. Although I have no doubt greed will enter the equation. Now, Riot know, obviously, that they're not going to draw. Of course you're not. Because if Riot Games, be under no illusion, Riot Games will cut off their nose to spite their face. Because they know that at the end of the day, with Riot, we'll just grow back another nose with our infinite money pot and fucking illegally harvested stem cells in this metaphor. They don't give a fuck. So they will cancel the league, and they will stop NA teams going to Worlds, and they'll cry about it and say, why are we doing this? Why are you making us do this? This is Riot, you know? They're the bully. They hold your head down the toilet. Why will you not just give me your lunch money? Why? Why are you making me do this to you? That's Riot Games. So, in this crucial moment, right? In this crucial moment where the Mexican standoff has been deployed, super important, right? Super important that everyone is on the same page and saying the same thing, singing from the same hymn sheet, you might say. So, Riot Games have to think that no one's actually going to back down, and there is a chance that someone will draw on them. Okay, that's set the scene about as well as I can. As always, it's rambly. As always, too many metaphors, but it's a hot day, and I haven't had a beer yet. Enter King Doublelift, God Emperor of the Morons. You see, at this moment in time, while the player stare down is happening, just say nothing. Let your union rep do the talking. Listen, I've been a shop steward, as I said, been that union rep guy. Sometimes when you're in them meetings, you just have to tell your client, shut the fuck up. Like, you just have to say, can we have a minute, please? Send them out the room. Shut the fuck up. Let me do the talking, because everything you're saying is just making it worse, right? I'm trying to save your job here, and you're not helping. So you have to step in And Philip, I mean, like, I've seen him called. I've been a bit. Gotta be honest. I like to think I have a good read on people, and I know I'm getting soft in my old age, but I think I have a good read on people, and I don't think Philip's a bad guy. I saw I Will Dominate say that he was like a grifter or something, and I'm like, I don't get that vibe at all. There may be some grandstanding on his part, but that sort of comes with the job of being the public face at anything. I thought the Four Horsemen was a little bit fractious. Like, I'm all for robust inquiry, but I also don't want, like, guests to feel like, well, never doing that again. And I genuinely think, like, people are, like, attacking him, which, look, you can disagree with what the players are doing. You can think it's stupid. I even said, I don't even know if an ACL does need to exist. Like, who gives a fuck? I wouldn't care if it went out of existence. And so it's weird. A lot of people seem to be really having a go at him. And it's like, yeah, I don't really think he's the bad guy in this. But anyway, one thing he is, whether you think he's disingenuous or not, he's certainly intelligent. He's certainly articulate. He's certainly capable of stringing a sentence together. He's certainly capable of negotiating verbal traps and pitfalls set by certain people like Riot Games. And so if maybe just let him do the talking on behalf of the players, when we all know most players can't even articulate why they're good at the game they're good at. Right? So, maybe let him do the talking, yeah? But no. Enter Doublelift. As I said, I'm staggered by this. He put a video out, right? And the video is called What I Agree and Disagree with LCS Walkout Discussion. And basically, as you will see, it's a 20-minute video. I'm going to try and make it as painless as possible. We are going to have to go through most of it. Can maybe get it down to 15, guys. But essentially, he just sells them Sauron. It's actually one of the most insane things I've ever seen anyone do. You couldn't have done worse by your fellow players, fellow union members, if you'd actually been paid by Riot to do it. So, yeah, let's just watch it, I guess.
I'm pretty sure what a lot of people want. For me to talk about the whole walkout, I'll just read questions from chat, I guess. Do I agree with the walkout and the demands? Okay, so let me go through the walkout and the demands, and I'll let you guys know. Blink twice if you're being held against your will. Nah. Why do I personally care about the demands? Okay, so these are the two questions I saw that I really like. So, I mean, let's just go through the timeline, okay?
By the way, I know it's early to jump in. He picked these questions out. That's the other staggering part about it. It's like he wasn't in a podcast, like Thorin, like bearing down on him, making him say ridiculous things. Like, there wasn't another party. Like, he's alone in a room, and he's still fucked it up. It's like, it's...
Riot killed the tier 2 scene. I'm going to call amateur or academy tier 2 because it's the easiest way to represent it. Okay, tier 1 is the highest level within that region. That's LCS or LCK, and then tier 2 is a level below that feeds into tier 1. Okay, and you can be demoted and promoted, between these two because it's still competitive. It's just a level below. So Riot killed tier 2, and they did, in my opinion, a really bad job in so many ways with how they approached it. So they didn't give anyone any notice. If you're going to make a decision like that, that's going to affect so many people's lives. People who've signed leases, people who've made plans, most importantly, people who've situated themselves in a certain place, expecting their contract to ride out to the remainder. Like there's no sign that tier 2 is going to be killed, and then all of a sudden, all their lives are just completely uprooted and disrupted. It's pretty fucked up. I don't care what really people say, it's still pro players, right? They're amateur players, but they're still professional players.
I won't. It's splitting hairs. I won't. I'll just let him. It's not his fault. He doesn't understand what those words mean. Obviously, it's cheap. It's cheap.
And definitely, you deserve at least some level of warning that your entire scene is going to be exterminated. Do I think that amateur or tier 2 scene with challengers, or what is it called, NACL was good? No, I think it was completely dog shit. Actually, I think the fact that the shittiest academy players are getting paid $70K and upwards, the worst academy players, the fact that the scene had almost no viewership, but it was getting constantly pumped money into just created so many problems. A lot of teams didn't want to be in it, but they're forced to be in it. That's not competitive. There's no
I don't know about these numbers, by the way. I don't know if they're real, but I can imagine them being real. I literally can imagine them being real because salaries in League of Legends are insane, and the owners that pay them are insane. And sometimes as well with the academy teams, it's like they bench a player and then to get value from that player, they put them in academy. That's happened on a few occasions, which is another reason why is this academy league even doing what it says on the tin? Because it's, you know, if it's a fucking semi-retirement home for washed players, it's not promoting new talent. So sometimes they'll be on a fraction of their original salary while playing an academy. So, yeah, I have no reason to doubt him on the numbers front, actually.
Competitive integrity and forcing teams to field rosters that they don't care about or want, because they know that, like, the bottom line is they're not going to make any money on it. They're not incentivized to care about it because there's no skin in the game for them. So I think the fact that teams are being forced to have academy teams was always a stupid idea. Maybe there was a time where all 10 teams were willing and like they wanted it, but then as soon as multiple teams don't want that requirement, which happened 5 years ago, I don't think that it should have been a requirement. I think there would have been a way better system, natural selection, like it's competitive environment. So there's a whole bunch of problems.
By the way, that I just to give him a W when he will score one or two Ws, not many, but one or two. I sort of agree with that. Like, I think in principle, if you have artificial guardrails that stop people essentially dropping below a certain threshold, I don't really consider it a true competitive environment in that sense. And I think it's like, you know, it's no coincidence where in esports where open tournament circuits have existed, generally the skill ceiling is higher. It's also no coincidence that, for example, in something like CSGO, we get partnered leagues and suddenly the standard is absolutely terrible, you know, 2-3 years in, where we're literally looking at teams in 2023 and they can't get basic utility correct, and they would lose to teams in 2018 that were pinpoint accurate with their utility because they were all trying desperately to be like Astralis and using their demos. See a lot of idiots, particularly on Reddit, keep saying, no, the top 10 now would all beat 2018 Astralis. And I think if you genuinely believe that, you're borderline psychotic. Like, there is no explanation for why a team missing basic utility is somehow good. You cannot explain that. Why are they missing that utility? What's happened in, you know, and it's because they've got soft and they've got complacent, because there isn't a survival of the fittest instinct, which you need in sports.
There's too much money in it. It costs too much. There's no returns. People are like, it created all these problems. Like, you guys hear about like contract jail for a lot of academy players, being, you know, signing 3-year contracts, having ridiculous buyouts. That's how the team recoups. If
gotta love NACL created contract jail and then puts in the video, couldn't find an example of an NACL player being in contract jail, but here's an example of contract jail from outside of the NACL. So, good
if
stuff.
you're in org and you're spending 300, 400, 500K, and I'm not making these numbers up, like that is actually very normal to spend like 300 to 500K per on your academy team. That's like honestly a minimum. Then how are you going to make any of that money back? You're not going to make it back. Sponsors don't give a fuck about academy. Doesn't matter if you have the best academy team. That's not adding any value to your sponsorships. Okay, that's so. Just throw that out of the window. You're not making any money off additional fans either. There are no fans of, for example, Cloud9 because their academy team is doing well. So how are you monetizing this situation that you've been forced into? Realistically, guys, it's by contract jailing and having ridiculous bouts on your players. So, like, if you are in academy, the way you're going to recoup that money is by selling your best players to an org, and you're going to sell this academy player's contract that goes for like 60K, for like 500K, because that is the only way that you can even be remotely breaking even for that year.
And, you know, listen, I've talked a lot about buyouts, and I don't like unfair buyouts or unreasonable buyouts. But, I mean, he sounds really surprised by that, as if it's like predatory to develop talent, put them on a contract with a high buyout, and then look to sell them as an asset flip. I mean, in CS, well, not just CS, but like Copenhagen Wolves, they did this in League as well. They did it across multiple esports. They would find talent and they would flip them. Na'Vi, flipped Munasian head trick. It's a good strategy. It works in sports, like in football, you sell young players, it's just you develop talent and then you sell them for greater than the investment. It can be one way for smaller teams that maybe can't win things to actually still remain financially relevant. So I don't know why it's being framed here as like, oh, it's a bad thing. It's like a perfectly normal thing in sports generally. But yeah, Doublelift doesn't think so. Not his fault on this particular instance. It's not ignorance. He's just American, and this is just how Americans think about sports, unfortunately, because, they don't know anything about European soccer.
So how is that good for anybody? If I was an academy player personally, I would feel like this fucking sucks. If I join a team and I do well, there's a pretty high chance that the only way my team is going to be willing to let me go is for a ridiculous buyout, which is going to dilute the roster that I'm on by taking away their budget, or just completely block my chances of joining an LCS team, because that is the only way for the team to make it financially make sense to let me go. That sucks. The only reason that you would be happy as an academy player, which is a pretty big one, is like, yeah, the paycheck. So, with all...
He's already kind of a little bit over the place. He's like, the only reason to be happy as an academy player is the paycheck. The stupidly massive paycheck I was just complaining about in the start of this section. Now, these, like, I could have skipped this bit. These aren't particularly, like, weak points or anything like that. But, generally, I think there isn't a typical academy player. Like, that's the one thing I've noticed from, like, looking into it. There does seem to be. There are young and upcoming prospective talents. There are people that maybe don't really have a shot ever at going into LCS, but it's somewhere for them to go and exercise their competitive urge when we don't have an open tournament circuit system, and collegiate is very specific in who can compete for who. And yeah, there's a lot of washed up bums coming down, and sometimes maybe like you've spent a lot of money on like foreign talent, you've signed them to a contract, they can't settle, they're not fitting into the team, you don't want to waste them, you put them here. So it's like it's way too broad to kind of make any generalizations, but yeah, people like taking a salary for doing it.
All that being said, I thought the old system was complete.
Was
a
not the
failure,
worst thing that can
but I
happen
think
to
the
you.
new system that Riot proposed is just as bad, and it's not acceptable. I do think that tier 2 actually does matter. I played with Buzio, I played with Tenacity. These players came up from academy. Many players came up from academy. I think it's important that there is a tier 2 scene also for community. Like, what is the word I'm looking for? Like, it's just like optics, like people say, why would I care about LCS when LCS, Riot doesn't care about the future of the league because they're not supporting tier 2. It just feels like shit. I don't think any, LCS players should be happy with that, because it just makes our league look even more of a joke. International performances, bad, but then also, like, we're the only region without a tier 2 scene. That's just going to kill people's hype for our league, like, even harder. LCS Academy filled with washed up pros. I mean, that's because 10 teams are required to field an academy team. And there are not really, like, 50 good amateur players, to be honest. Like I said, it's like people just didn't really care about, like, the teams don't really care about having a strong academy team or not. If anything, academy existed just to have like a potential like backup for your main roster. I just don't think it's like serving the purpose that people really wanted academy to serve. Let's see what the LCSPA came back.
Whatever. I'm just not getting into that. I mean, yeah, it's nice to have subs for your main team. It's just stupid, isn't it? This is where it gets good, okay? Because we're going to specifically talk now about the Player Association demands. You can see they put out 5 requests. And remember, Doublelift's on... He is a member of the PA. Which is going to be really baffling to you very soon.
Okay, so the talks started between Philip, and I was in pretty constant communication with Philip before the vote. These are the demands, and when I read the demands, I was honestly a little bit disappointed, because I feel like these demands are either unreasonable or just like not the right way of coming to the table with something that everyone should want. Valorant style promotion relegation. What does Valorant style mean? This does not mean that that teams can be kicked out of tier 1. This really means that, like, for example, you guys might be thinking promotion and relegation means the bottom 2 teams in LCS can be relegated out of LCS. Well, then where did their $10 million investment go? They pay $10 million, hand that over. What do they own now? They own a spot. They cannot be kicked out of that spot. Like, you can't just, the Bright can't just take their 10 million and be like, okay, bye-bye, like, you lost to fucking Tyler One's Academy, like, amateur team. That's not what Valorant style promotion relegation is. Valorant style promotion relegation is the league would expand to 2 more teams, and those 2 teams, so instead of 10, it would be 12, and those 2 extra teams would come from tier 2. And those 2 spots, for let's say, you know, it's a 12-team league now, and the bottom 2 teams would be those, like, temporary spots. Those spots are not owned. Those spots are promoted and relegated between every single split or every single year. Okay, sounds like a cool idea, right? In theory. I had to think about this for literally 2 seconds to realize, like, there's so many problems with it. Like, the upside is that you're going to get to see like the top academy teams play with the LCS teams. You also have the opportunity for those academy teams, for the tier 2 teams, if they're really, really good, if they deserve to be a top team, they can make it to Worlds. That's a Valorant style promotion relegation. Actually, in Valorant, tier 2 teams can make it to Worlds. That's pretty crazy, right? So that's pretty cool. You and your 4 challenger or your 4 bronze friends can make a team, and you can make it all the way to Worlds if you're good enough. That is competitive. I love that idea. Now, in practice, this is actually pretty shit, because think about it. The bottom teams in LCS already don't deserve to be here anymore. They paid $10 million a long time ago, and they checked out like 4 or 5 years ago. I think that there's already too many teams in the league, and there's not even 50 LCS level players in the region, including imports. So why would we want to even further dilute the league by adding 2 even worse teams?
So the assumption there is, and it doesn't even make sense, you'll never be able to accurately assess whether or not they're worse teams, because they will never have an opportunity to show whether or not they're worse teams, because there's no interleague competition. So when you exist in a league that's structured like the NFL, where it's actually viable to just tank, it's just viable to lose, it's viable to, like, well, we paid 10 million, we're in the league no matter what, we're not going to win it this season, our team's dog shit, fuck it, let's down tools, actually let's get rid of all of our tier 1 players and just have our academy team play our games and just, you know, muddle through them. It doesn't matter, right? So you'll never know. You'll never be able to accurately assess how far a team in the Academy League can go, because there is no ascension. There is no way to work your way upwards. Now, obviously, as well, the other thing that gets missed out here is we've already established that in an ideal world, what people want is they want like Cloud9 and Cloud9 Academy. Well, you can never have promotion in a system like that, because obviously Cloud9 versus Cloud9 Academy, Cloud9 need to win the LCS. I wonder what happens. Well, like, I just don't know how many times we can have that conversation in fucking esports. But, you know, it happens all the time. People are just letting, like, academy teams play their main teams. And it's like, guys, like, we said we weren't going to do this in 2016, and we're doing it, and we keep doing it, and everyone keeps going, well, I don't think anyone would throw a game. In esports? Are you fucking dizzy? Like, how many, these games are all rigged, you mad cunts, what are you doing? So, whatever. But anyway, that's not, obviously, it's not coming to the table. Remember, Doublelift doesn't even think that being a subordinate at a company while having sex with the person responsible for negotiating his contract is a conflict of interest. So we just can't get into it, can we? I mean,
in my opinion, it's the opposite that needs to happen. Instead of adding 2 spots, they need to somehow find a way to cut 2 teams from the league. I think that LCS should have 8 teams, and that would, you know, it's a supply and demand problem. There's too many spots, and there's not enough competitive teams to fill them. And that's why you have teams that are checked the fuck out. They're kind of coasting, and they're ready to, they want to sell. I don't think that anyone in LCS wants...
By the way, TSM aren't leaving the LCS because they can't compete in the LCS. They want to leave LCS because they don't think they get anything out of it economically, and they don't want to put any more money into having a team in a league that doesn't provide anything for them economically. They'd much rather be in another region where they believe they can monetize it better, have better inroads in that regard. It's got nothing to do with, wow, we can't win LCS. We're not competitive, so let's go to another region. Like, if you can't be competitive in LCS, you can't be competitive anywhere. But obviously, TSM are just saying it's not worth, the juice isn't worth the squeeze. To be top at LCS, who gives a fuck? That's where they're at mentally. Which is why, by the way, like 10 months ago, no one even picked up on it. I did tell you they were looking to leave like the LCS, and they wanted to buy that LEC slot that was up for grabs. I think went to Heretics or something.
To play with or against people who want to get out of the league. Like, that's not a good environment to play in. Okay, so that's my opinion on that. I don't think that I don't think this is reasonable at all. I don't think so. And secondly, it's going to dilute the value of the 10 existing spots. That's what Riot said in their reply to this as well. Okay, so Riot commit to a revenue player pool of player salaries for $300K per NACL team per year. I'm open to being wrong on this, but my very hot take on this is $300K per NACL team means a minimum of $60K per academy per tier 2 player salary. That's just crazy to me. I don't think that the worst academy players, I don't think that you can be picked up and you can be the 99th best player in the league. I put that in quotes because it's not actually like that, because there's roles, there's nepotism, there's people Let's just say you're the 99th best league player in America. I don't think that you should be getting paid $60K per year as a minimum. I'm a huge believer.
You can see at the bottom, which would be my critique, you can see exactly the trap he's fallen into. He's gone this entire... He realizes he said something stupid and is now retroactively trying to correct it. He probably his editor did it for him, just as a nice gesture, as a kind gesture. But the problem you've got here is he's talking about $60,000. Now you're thinking about $60,000. $60,000 is a lot of money. $60,000 to play video games is a lot of money. Now imagine you are compelled to live in fucking Los Angeles, and you are compelled to live within driving distance of the studio in Los Angeles, in some of the most expensive real estate in the world. Now tell me about your $60,000, dickhead. Oh, that's right. $60,000 doesn't do jack shit for you. Keep in mind that even when Blizzard were doing the Overwatch League over in was Burbank, right? People were having to fucking sleep in their cars. Loads of the staffers that worked on that were couch surfing, and they were getting paid decent money, 6-figure money, but even they had to really cut corners to live. Again, I don't want to name drop here, but I was talking to people who were working on the Overwatch League that were eating ramen. Now I eat ramen for fun because I'm a bum, but I'm a lazy bum. But if you're living in California and you're earning 6 figures, you probably shouldn't have to be eating ramen. You probably shouldn't have to be asking people if they're done with that in the fucking Activision Blizzard canteen and eating their scraps. It's fucking crazy. And so, again, obviously he's fucked up, hasn't he? He's given this, Doublelift's problem is that he's just how to describe it? It's just... He's just a ball of sensation. There is no sort of fully fleshed out thoughts or ideas in his brain. It's just something comes out, and then he realizes, I could have thought about that. I could have analyzed that. I could have explored that idea. Too late now. I've expressed it, and it's he's always playing catch up to his mouth, basically. And so here he is again. I don't think you should earn $60,000. Well, dude, if they earn less than that, they'll be literally on the fucking streets in LA. The money you need to live out there is fucking crazy.
Having a, obviously a reasonable floor. I don't know what the reasonable floor is. In my head, it would be $30K per player. But having the ability to make, up to $100K per year if you're really fucking good. What happened to tournaments with actual prize pool? Why can't Tier 2 be tournaments with prize money where the players can win a lot of money, and
By the way, I actually agree with this point. Let's let him finish it.
it's highly fucking motivating when you enter a competition and $20,000 in your pocket is on the line. Yeah, I'm like a pretty big believer in that personally. I think it would be fun for the viewers to watch. I also think this is like a pretty contentious topic, but I think that when you allow the salaries to be so high in academy, there's actually more negatives to being promoted to LCS than positives. Think about it.
Right, hold on. He's about to go off on a tangent. Yeah, why? He really should have explored this more. Why aren't there more tournaments with prize money? Oh, that's right. Yeah, you all signed up. You, Doublelift, one of the biggest beneficiaries of this, you all signed up and agreed when Riot came in and stopped that system and said, hey, we're going to make LCS. It's going to be rad. We're going to turn you all into household names, household stars. We're not working with DreamHack anymore. We're not working with MLG anymore. We're not working with ESL anymore. We're going to do it all by ourselves. All of those great tournaments down the years gone. We're not going to do them anymore. And you're going to get paid insane salaries, and you're only going to have to worry about playing one game a week for the fucking broadcast. And everybody jumped at that. Players thought they were like, they'd hit the fucking, jackpot. Because they had. But for everyone else, for people who aren't good enough to play in that league, you've just killed your scene. Overwatch did the same. Like, what do I do if I want to be an Overwatch player? Like, what? I have to grind ladder, have to get noticed. Now what? Contenders, is it? And then no one even watches that. No one promotes that. How do I earn money? How do I become a pro? Like, everyone talks about their path to pro, but there is no path to pro, because a path to pro is, put it this way, you would have heard a lot more about these franchise leagues in CSGO, these partnered leagues in CSGO, if it wasn't for all the dodgy betting sites that were running these $250,000 fucking tournaments every weekend, because Tier 2 can go and play those. If those didn't exist, and it was, you either had to be in Blast or you had to be in ESL, you would have heard about that a fucking lot quicker. At the end of the day, yeah, why isn't that there? Why can't you go out and make prize money? Oh yeah, Riot made that decision. Who emboldened Riot to make that decision? All the players and all the team owners who signed up to their bullshit. So, fuck you. You make your bed, you lie in it. You can't complain about it now.
Right now, or 1 year ago, I shouldn't say right now, a year ago, 2 years ago, if you're an academy player, you have a cushy job and you're getting paid like 70 or 80K a year, up to like 100, maybe 100K a year,
we know.
Right? If you're a good academy player. I think that there are a lot of players that have flickered in and out of the bottom tier of LCS. When they get promoted from that academy position, they come into LCS and it's like test time. And they could be good, but most of the time they get completely ran down and they're not LCS level. And then their value drops dramatically afterwards. Like, their value drops like crazy afterwards because people saw them perform poorly in LCS. Why risk it? Like, why risk getting promoted to LCS when you could just take the guaranteed cushy academy salary? Like, I just know that is like an attitude held by some. You have a lot to lose. You have like your job, By
the way, this is such a tell on the mindset of North American esports competitors that it's actually brilliant. Because he's saying, why would you ever want to play at the highest level and prove yourself? Why would you want to work hard when you have a cushy salary just playing at this lower level down here? Now, some people obviously do want to play at the highest level, and some people do. For them, it's all about competition and not about money. Some people don't want to sit on a bench and earn a fat salary. Other people, even, again, pro sports stars, you know the ones. You've seen them out there where there's look at fucking Phil Jones at Man United. I mean, sure, he's probably a crock. He probably is just going to, too injury prone to play. But Phil Jones never entered his mind to fucking leave Man United. They're giving that cunt a testimonial. He's been there that long, if you can believe it. It's actually mental. And he's been there the whole time on, I don't even know, probably fucking 50 grand a week, probably more. It's so insane. And it's yeah, some people can do that. Others can't. Now, I know the mindset, the bag-hungry mindset of the NA esports competitor is actually, yeah, they would probably rather just sit and take the easy bag than compete. It's not like League of Legends is a pleasant environment to even work in, as we keep finding out time after time, where, you know, these players are fucking cranked up on fucking Adderall. By the way, I'll have to write something about this. If you've ever wondered why there's so many, like, esports people suffering with mental health, yes, mental health can strike anyone at all times, and particularly the demographic of the average esports competitor is a demographic that is particularly vulnerable to mental health problems. But I'm telling you, in America, these Adderalls are getting, they're just passed around like fucking sweeties, like Tic Tacs, and it's definitely a factor. I know it's a factor. And so, yeah, it's not like a pleasant environment. You grind all these games all the time. Everyone calls you dog shit. There's no support network at any of these orgs, no matter what they say, no matter how many times they tell you they got a nutritionist and they do a video of someone cooking, or tell you they got a sports psychologist and they have a guy going, yeah, you know, we do a team huddle before every game to encourage bonding and all this bullshit. They don't actually look after the fucking players at all. They are cattle, they are assets. And it becomes abundantly clear to the ones of above average intelligence that that's what they are. So why the fuck would you do it? Of course you wouldn't do it. So anyway, I don't even disagree with him here.
Job insecurity in LCS is so much higher than it is in Academy.
This is the NA mindset.
So
check first.
That was an old system. I guess I'm rambling right now because within the new system, I don't think it would really be an issue. It's just, like I said, I think 300K per team is like a little bit high. Allow LCS orgs to partner with affiliates for cost sharing. I think Riot addressed this already, and it's already a thing. It's a good idea. Basically, what that means is like partnering with like Maryville University, partnering with like different tier 2 orgs to split the costs, but also to like split the benefits. So, you know, there's more collaboration, and it's just easier on the LCS orgs to dip their toes into tier 2. Riot guarantees LCS minimum contracts for the following year for 5 players who win the LCS Summer Finals each year. This is where I started getting like a little bit, I started questioning. I'm like, what does that mean? So then I had to clarify with Philip. Basically what that means is that the 5 Academy players who win are guaranteed to have a job for the next year. And I was so curious, like, who wanted this rule? Is it like the Academy champions, C9?
Person who voted on this asks who wanted the rules. Like the turn in this video is so insane. It's so mind-blowing to me. It's like they had meetings about this, you know? They had meetings about this.
And like, I'm not trying to point fingers. Like, I just like don't understand like who wants this rule. It's a free market. You can be completely hard carried to winning Academy finals. It's a competitive market. I don't think anyone should be guaranteed a contract. There are times where people win LCS and the next year they don't have a team. There are times where, you know, people win LEC, I think, and they don't next year they don't have a team. I think like Emperor and like Hybrid had that happen to them. It's a competitive market. I don't know what to say. If you're good, you will be picked up. You institute a 3/5 roster continuity rule to provide players on released NACL rosters first priority in maintaining their spots. Okay, so basically what this means is like you have this org, your name is fucking Fred. You made Fred Esports. And you have a roster, and all those players won. Those players have a spot in NACL, and you know, you're Fred, and you're like, man, fuck these guys, I don't like them. So you kick all 5 of them, and you get 5 new players, and you still have that spot in NACL. Under this rule, those 5 players, if 3 out of 5 of them choose to stick together, they actually own that spot. To kind of prevent you from having like shitty ownership, or to have a situation where like a team just completely nukes the whole team and still has that spot. I don't know how to feel about that, to be honest. And because I don't feel strongly one way or the other, and I could see like an upside and downside, like I don't really...
What I find interesting is that he says he doesn't know how we should feel about it, but based on what you just said about the previous point, I'll tell you how you should feel about it. You should apply your free market policy to it. And you should say what you just said, which is no one should be guaranteed a contract, no one should be able to keep a slot. It's if, you know, it belongs to the person paying the salary and they can have whatever players they want on the roster. And it's really weird to me because I've talked about this before. We had the 3 out of 5 rule in CSGO, right? We had it for the fucking slots in the majors, back how we used to do the majors. Like, nobody in CS complained at all about that. In fact, they actually universally thought that was a good thing. They all said it's players that won those spots. It's players that competed to get those spots. It's players that earned the right to compete at the major. The players should get to do it again. And that's what, and everybody stood by that. In every other esport, by the way, spoiler, they're like, it's the people who pay the salary should have the spot. Like, it's very cold and clinical in League of Legends. There's not a lot of love for the players own anything idea, which is super weird to me. So, yeah, just letting you know. Anyway, here we go.
Yeah, I don't really know. And I don't really care. Anyways, I talked to Philip about all these, and the funny thing is, as you can tell, I don't really fully agree with any of these. I only really agree with the affiliates cost sharing thing, and that thing is like already happened. So why did I vote yes on the walkout? Why did overwhelming people?
It's like he's asking himself. Why? I don't agree with any of this. So why did I vote yes? Like, it's so insane. It's like that guy calling in fucking James O'Brien or whatever he's called on that fucking London radio. And he just thought, I don't know why I voted for Brexit, James. What have I done to my country? Oh, come on now, mate. It wasn't your fault, even though 90% of this show is just fucking porn for the Guardian reading, liberal intelligentsia. It's not your fault, mate. It's like, what do you mean? Why did you do... Like, you saw the things that they wanted. You saw the list of demands. And you're asking yourself now? And by the way, it gets worse, but you're putting this out now in the Mexican standoff that somebody who voted yes for this, actually doesn't want any of it and can't even understand why you voted yes. You're putting that out publicly while you're in a stare down with Riot.
Actually, I'll tell you guys a story of the day. Like, the day we were scrimming until 8. Every LCS team is scrimming, and we have a meeting in 30 minutes. And I'm looking at the LCS Players Association chat. It's a Discord channel. And I'm thinking, there is no fucking way that even 26 people are going to show up. You understand how lazy LCS players are? After scrims, everyone's tired or hungry. You think that a bunch of people are going to show up to this thing and we're going to have 26 out of 50 LCS players vote? There's 15 Koreans. There's a shit ton of other imports. I think they have less skin in the game. They should care less, just naturally not being from the region. Like, understandable, right? Like, a lot of them don't even speak English yet perfectly. To have 26 people even show up is a fucking miracle.
The power of the union, like, the power of union. Do you know how fucking lazy the average member of the fucking union that I'm also a member of are? They're all dirtbags. They're all scumbags. They're all lazy scumbags. And we didn't even think, I don't believe they'd even bother turning up to vote. And also, we've got members. It's not even in their interests to turn up and vote. They don't care. They can just go back to the country we imported them from anyway. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Okay, so I show up to this thing and I have my expectations really low. I'm thinking 10 people are going to show up, including my team. And I'm thinking, okay, like, maybe 10 or 15 people are going to show up, and it's, even if we all vote yes, there's not going to be enough people even in this fucking meeting to make anything happen. And, like, sure enough, the Discord server fills up fucking fast. So fast. And I'm thinking, like, what is going on? This is crazy, like, how many people are here. And then we do a head count. Philip does a head count. And we are 46 out of 50 players are here. 46 LCS players. Like, that's just insane to me. Like, how is this possible that 46 out of 50 players showed up? The last 4 people trickle in, I think. And it's just all 50. Literally all players showed up to the meeting. I was absolutely amazed. If you asked me to bet something, I would have probably bet my life savings, actually. Yeah, I would have bet my...
This is a man that lost $200,000 in crypto because he forgot how to get it. Doesn't have the best of luck with betting. Also, the guy who thought maybe Peter Zhang was genuine in the need for all that money.
My life savings, there's no way all 50 players are going to show up. Maybe there's about 26 do, right? For the majority, and all 26 vote yes, but all 50? Like, what the fuck, bro? That was crazy. And so, I was like, something's going to happen. Like, I could feel the magic in the air that night. I was like, something's going to happen here. I did not expect this at all. I don't think anyone expected this. I think Philip was like, what the fuck? There's like way more people here than I expected. Like, players are so lazy. Yeah, that's the story of how I lost all my life savings. So anyways, the vote happened. It was overwhelming. I'm not going to say what the vote was. It was overwhelming majority. I walked out of that meeting feeling like pretty happy. We walked out of that meeting.
He walked out of the meeting feeling pretty happy because they voted for demands that he doesn't agree with at all. Because something happened. There was magic in the air.
And everyone was... I think there was a little bit of tension, I feel like, but I wanted to say one thing, which is I don't think there's a world where LCS just like continues as normal. Like, how much of a joke would it be if you guys watched LCS? LCS just starts. The stream starts. The players walk out. There's like the casters have to ignore that happening. There's like no coverage of it, and then the games get played between like 50 bronze players. How is that going to happen? Like, just explain it to me, guys. Like, who's gonna want that to happen? I kind of like we're talking about like doomsday scenarios. Like, okay, what happens when if there's like defectors? What happens if we're
defectors? He said defectors. He, of course, did mean scabs. No one's defecting, but all right. The Dementors, yeah, that's what he meant.
We're like getting pressured to be replaced on LCS Day. I'm like, guys, there's like no way LCS is gonna happen. To me, I think it's an empty threat that Riot was like looking at the teams to replace their rosters with like scabs. It's for Worlds, by the way. Summer Split is for Worlds. So you're going to say the standings for Worlds the first week of LCS, like fucking 1/9 of the regular season games is played by just complete giga randoms?
Now, what he has sort of left out here is Riot absolutely, by the way, told the teams, I put this out on my Substack, Riot absolutely told the teams, if you can get a team together, go and do it. And they were offering, the number I heard was they were offering like players, like collegiate level players, academy level players, maybe players that had been former pros but like aren't active right now and are streamers or whatever. They were like offering them like 4K a game was the number I heard that was but they were being turned down because if you go look at the League of Legends subreddit and you look at what the attitude is, those players, their life would have been over like socially. Their life would have been over socially. Like, in terms of like standing in the community or whatever. They would have been fucked, right? And they recognize that. Like, listen, it's $4,000, not much in the grand scheme of things if you're a League of Legends person. Not life-changing amounts of money. It'll only be for 1 or 2 weeks, but, like, I'll be a pariah ever since. So, like, these teams tried to get scabs because Riot told them that, yes, go and get the scabs. And they couldn't. They couldn't find scabs. So then the next thing that was going to happen was... They were like, listen, if we can't use any player at any level, because if you remember, the LCSPA, they put out a fucking statement saying, if you scab, just know you're not just fucking over the players who were doing the walkout, you're fucking yourself over and every pro that comes after you, like every player that comes after you. So stand firm on this one. So the orgs went and said, what about staff? Can we use staff? And so the discussion behind the scenes was, if you had staff on the books, like coaches, analysts, people who hadn't been players, people who weren't considered players, or people that were so far from their playing days, them coming back would be considered like, whatever. They're not one of us anymore. They've ascended and they do something else. That was the next thing they were looking at. And these orgs actually, they wanted the player association to publicly bless and say, we allow you to have your staff, just so they wouldn't catch heat for it. And TSM are so fucking delusional. Honestly, we nearly had Reginald coming out of retirement. If Riot hadn't have cancelled this for like 2 weeks, we get Reginald coming out of retirement going, hey guys, remember me? And it's like, I can think of no worse advertisement for LCS if a guy who's been investigated and sanctioned for bullying his own staff and is meant to be keeping a low fucking profile, even TSM themselves are saying, Reginald's not going to be as hands-on anymore. He just gets to come out and go, yo, remember me? And goes in and just plays in a TSM lineup. It would just be with staff that are terrified by him, and he'd be screaming at them, fuck you doing, man? Why didn't you flash? Why didn't you flash? It would have been too good, right? So Riot, sensing how bad it was, they said, fuck it. That was when the 2-week delay kicked in. It was crazy because, I dropped my report. I'd been working on it all day and interviewing people and stuff. I dropped my report, and then it was 10 minutes after Riot were like, yeah, actually, we're just going to postpone this for 2 weeks because that is just a nightmare. So that's what was going on. So, he's saying giga randoms and that Riot weren't going to allow it and stuff. Absolute nonsense. If people could have got the games together with scabs, the games would have gone ahead.
I don't think so. And then Riot came out with that response. I think at this point, you guys probably already read the response.
Now get ready.
LCS ended up getting pushed back 2 weeks. Ultimately, it's not really up to me. I voted yes. So let me I never explained exactly what I'm standing for.
You certainly didn't, mate. I'm all in though. I do want to hear this. What are you standing? I mean, it's pretty clear what you should be the goals of the LCS Players Association have been clearly stated. There's a list of demands. It's clearly stated. So it's pretty by voting yes, we should be under no illusions as to what you stand for. But you were then turned around and said you don't agree with any of the demands. So I'm intrigued. Educate me.
What I think we all voted on is not these bullet points. I don't want to speak for everyone, but my feeling is that we didn't vote on these bullet points. We didn't say, yes, we support all of these bullet points. We want Riot to support the tier 2 scene. Not kill it, basically. Just and especially in the way that they killed it, with no notice, with no discussion, and in fact just lying to Philip's face about it, lying to the Players Association and getting away with that. We needed to take a stand. I'm surprised. I'm not super welling with pride, oh my god, this is a revolution, but I'm honestly just pretty surprised that we're just sitting here in the comfort of our keyboards, guys. We're not actually doing anything. So, people were like, man, so brave, so based. We're sitting at our keyboards. We have our headsets on. We're listening to Philip talk, and he, we cast our vote. It takes 5 minutes. It's
Imagine you're creating, it's a virtual picket line, and one of your most prominent members that voted in solidarity with you just a few days ago is on that same virtual picket line going, yeah, but we ain't doing shit though, are we really? I mean, let's be honest about it. This miners' strike, we all know how it ends. Thatcher's going to win. I mean, and I don't know about you, but I've got money. I don't even need to be down the pits. What are you talking about? Just fucking imagine it. It's even if you don't believe it, you just don't say, don't say it, and certainly don't say it to your entire fucking audience in public in a video that is preserved for all time. The height. Keep in mind, at this point, the stare down was still on. It was still real. I believe shortly after this video came out, they put a statement out saying, listen, players are front and center, and we hope talks are productive, and we're gonna do everything we can. It's literally he's going yeah, you're super. There is an element of bravery to this, by the way. Yeah, these players are pampered, overprivileged kids. Fair enough. And they wouldn't know about real strike action or indeed like just real collective action in general. You know, like I get it. It's not that, and that's not a critique. You know, like not everyone is cut from that cloth, and not everyone has it. You know, as part of their history growing up. You know, so that's fine. But it's like Riot hold your entire livelihood in the palm of your hand. And you've stood up to them, and you've stood up to them in a very public fashion. Do you think they wanted to cancel LCS for 2 weeks? Do you think they want to have to call all the sponsors up and say deliverables are going to be off, or you know we might need to renegotiate the contract, or we might need to give you some of your money back or whatever, or maybe those sponsorship deals just get broke because you didn't hit a target. They said we want 10 weeks. Now it's not 10 weeks. Like Riot are going to be fucking stewing about that forever, and they are going to remember every single person. And keep in mind, it's already been made public by one of the fucking Pokemon journalists. I don't know if it's fucking Wooloo, Eevee, Gengar, like which fucking Clefairy, which fucking League of Legends journalist broke it, I don't know. Gen 1, of course. I only know Gen 1. But they said the votes were near unanimous, and that's what I heard too. And then somebody even one of them came out with the specific numbers. It's not going to take long for fucking Riot to discern who voted for what and whether or not they want to start getting all up in your shit. So it is brave, and it is based. And to sort of denigrate your fellow members in public like this is outrageous.
And ultimately, what we're asking for isn't even really that crazy. It is that we want Riot to support the tier 2 scene.
What we're really asking for, he has just said what you're asking, mate, you're in negotiations. What they're asking for is the demands. You've just given the game away. You've just said we're not asking for the demands. What we really want. No. You meant to say you want the demands. Now, I know it's like a hostage situation, right? It's like a hostage. So, you've got your hostages, you've robbed the bank, you've been caught, someone triggered that fucking silent alarm, but don't worry, I got like 20 hostages, and, we'll let that woman go with asthma, and, we'll trade that for some pizzas. And, look, I want the pizzas, and I want a fucking TV, and I want a helicopter, and I want fake passports so I can go to Cuba, and you're not getting any of that. If you're lucky, you're not getting shot in the head. But you still ask. That's how the negotiations work. You get the pizza, you get the TV, you get to live, and you do fucking 10 years, 20 years inside. That's how it works, right? You can't just turn around in the middle of negotiations and say, them things I asked for, I don't really want the helicopter, actually. I don't want the helicopter. Just give me the pizza. Just give me the fucking pizza. I'll eat that, and I'll come out and surrender. Like, you don't say that. You are not the official spokesperson, and you have just basically said our demands are bogus publicly. You've just completely undercut the whole purpose of the union, totally sabotaged their stance.
In a reasonable way. I don't really want to be part of the discussion of what that means. But also that Riot shouldn't be able to make changes like that kills people's jobs with no notice and with no discussion. Yeah, that's why we took a stand. I think I'm doing a pretty bad job of explaining it, but that's just a few of the reasons, I guess, that majority of people voted yes. What about the team owners? I don't know if I made this clear enough, but I don't think that the teams should be forced to have academy teams. That system benefited nobody, actually. I think that it's on Riot to spend a small percentage of their money to support the tier 2 scene and not just kind of kill it as it is and then pawn it off to some random org I've never even heard of with some dog shit name I didn't even see. It's like in one of their posts somewhere, but framed we remain committed, and they killed it. Okay, they killed it. That's all there is to it. They basically just dumped it in the street, and they shot it for good measure. Somewhere in between the old system and that system is one where Riot can still have a tier 2 scene exist. Did I watch that one say? I actually did not. And I don't know, this thing has been coming to this really big issue.
I love this as well because it ends. I always love it when there's a bit just as we're ending. The truth. I love it. Players never stop telling me the truth. The 100% truth that you're definitely mentally equipped to deliver. I fucking love it. Keep giving me the truth.
I guess I want to say that I care, but if it's the option of standing by Academy and having LCS Summer Split be canceled, like Riot threatened, and just letting go of the situation, I'm letting go. Like,
it's there. It's there. Guys, listen. Don't know about you, but you know, like if it's getting shot, you know, or like surrendering and saying, you know, actually, you guys aren't that bad. I don't. No. I get it. We've got to tell him, like, you know, we'll fight them on the beaches. I get it. He's great at speeches, that guy. But, you know, just saying, if I get the opportunity to surrender, I'm 100%. Yeah? Are we about that? Yeah. Yeah. It's fucking unreal. Like, it is the most mental thing I have ever seen a play. Like, this is it. This is like the cake take of 2023. This is the most outrageous, out of pocket, self-defeating, stupid thing I have ever seen a player do this year. Maybe not ever. I'm saying ever. It can't really be ever, but certainly this year. It cannot be topped. You have literally gone on stream at the height of a walkout you voted for as part of a union that are asking for a list of demands you apparently don't want, and you have publicly said, by the way, now that Riot have responded and threatened us to cancel LCS, if it's a choice between standing in solidarity with my union members to get these demands or actually just getting paid and playing in LCS, I'm going to take getting paid and playing LCS. So that's it. Right, little word to the wise about, like, strike action, walkouts, whatever the fuck you want to call them. When you're a working class bum, which we all are, right? We're all fucking beholden to the man in one way or another, yeah? Right? The ultimate thing you can do, in fact, in many ways, the only true way you can ever fucking hurt the puppet masters is you just say, I'm not going to do it. You withdraw your labour. I'm not going to do it. Because if you're down here in the pyramid, labour's all you got. That's the one thing. And yeah, you can apply it to sports, you can apply it to everywhere, but just in general, a rule of life. If you get enough people say, we're not going to do it, and that shit's got to get done, things will change. Now, it might not be pretty at first. Yeah, they might send in some police to crack your fucking skulls. There might not be tea and biscuits round a table. It totally depends on the situation. But we've all had our skulls cracked. You wake up the next day and you say, still not going to do it. Now what? Well, fuck it. We tried cracking their skulls. Where do we go to now? Eventually you get round that fucking table, right? Eventually you get round that table. And when you get round that table, that's when you've got to be smart. And that's when you've got to know what cards you can play now. Because they're different. You played the mega card. Now you got to be sensible, and you got to be diplomatic, and you got to be political, and you got to know what's realistic. And maybe you can come out with a cost of living pay rise, which, by the way, imagine having to fight for that. But workers do. Every fucking, interest rates through the roof, and people aren't even getting paid relevant to that. Your money is going like less and less distance than it used to. You're being told to work more and more. You're getting less and less holiday, less and less benefits, 0-hour contracts. Yeah, guys, there's going to come a point in your future, especially if you're young and you're a 20-something and maybe you're just about to get out of university, you better know when to play that card. And put it this way, when you do play that card, you better pray that you don't have some fucking dickhead like this telling you, actually, this card is meaningless. I'd rather get the bag. Because when people start saying that, we used to call them class traitors when I was growing up. As soon as people start saying that, that's when the puppet masters win every single fucking time. When they know they can bribe a few of you and pay you off, and eventually the people that make the money and get the cars, they'll fucking go and do the work, and you're the dickhead on the street corner with no money. It's your kids that go hungry. let me tell you a story. I wasn't really old enough to go down on the front lines of the miners' strike, but I grew up in a colliery. So a colliery is a mining town. It's literally where the housing is built for the people in the pit. So all my family were miners that went on strike during Thatcher era shit. And let me tell you what they did, right? They sent London Metropolitan Police up onto the picket lines because Thatcher wanted to crack heads because people weren't bending, they weren't breaking. And the police used to taunt, my uncle told me this as a kid, always stayed with me. The police used to taunt the miners that were starving, right? Literally starving because they were making no money because they were on strike. Used to taunt them with wedges of cash because they were getting paid triple overtime to come and smash the strikers. Now, did my uncle bend or break? My uncle's got 4 kids. Did he fuck? They stand together, right? And then you got some dickhead like this, already got millions in the bank, fucking saying this. It's outrageous. So, guys, you can, sorry, he's got a bit serious. He's got a bit work. He's a little bit of politics. He's made it political. But I'm going to tell you, saying that actually, I'll just take the money if you offer it to me, when it's a collective action, it's unforgivable, by the way. If there was any sensible logic in this, then he would be a pariah among his fellow players. What he's done, in a lot of ways, is actually worse than the scabs. So think about that.
I'm letting go of the situation. I'm not like
with a smile on his face.
It, that I'm willing to not play Summer Split. So like when Riot threatened to go nuclear, that's a pretty big threat. Like I think every player was a little bit affected by that. It's like, whoa, Riot's willing to cancel Summer Split? I hope the negotiations go well. I'm just telling you guys the truth. You don't think that everyone knows that? Like it's just it is what it is, guys. It's like beating a dead horse because like everyone is in agreement that the old system sucked. The old system is not the way. I think let's find a new system where tier 2 can exist and there can be jobs in tier 2 and it's not on the teams, but it is more of like a free market where a team like this guy's Toast's team can be made and out of nowhere because somebody wanted to be an academy. They actively are seeking to compete in academy, not forced to be in there and given a participation trophy, strapped down, kicking and screaming like you need to find 5 players, bitch, and a coach and analysts and give them food and da-da-da. And he is trying really hard to make his games exciting, right? He has done a great job. It's just one example, but
we'll just get an arse lick in for a big influencer at the end, and then let's go
the tier 2 should be
my outro. I'm a YouTuber. Here's all my other shits. Right, and that's why, by the way, good person whoever put that in the chat, yes, you may dub him Double Scab for the rest of his life. But anyway, I don't think it ends there. I got sent some other clips of him saying stupid things on another live stream, right? Which, obviously, it is like shooting fish in a barrel. I get it, guys. So, somebody pointed out on stream that he'd given away all their leverage. Which he has. That's that. You've just said you won't do the one thing that you have to do at a strike, right? So, here we go.
You gave away your leverage. The only leverage you had is labor. If the only leverage I had, if the only like turning point in the negotiation is the threat of like exterminating the LCS for Summer Split and canceling it, then I wouldn't even want there to be negotiations because that's so crazy. Like 50 people will literally not have a job. All the LCS orgs are gonna have like super devalued, and the coaches are everyone like we just will not have a job. That's crazy. Like I don't think anyone wants that to be the leverage. McDonald's angle fast. What other leverage is there? I mean, I think it shows that overall majority players would walk out on the LCS. I didn't think anyone was like thinking that because we would refuse to play that the LCS would just be canceled indefinitely. That
like it's just unreal. And you can see there as well Dom saying props to the Twitch chat that asks what other leverage do you have outside of your labor. It's like, yeah, that's the point. It's the whole point was we're going to lose our jobs to make sure these other guys have jobs. And you've just given the game away that you don't actually care about their jobs. You care about your jobs. You don't care about their bag. You care about your bag. But the whole point is you're meant to be a collective. You're meant to be a group. The whole premise of the strike was about that. It's unreal. Because there was another clip, right, where he said, yo, lots of people think I've got issues with Phil, and meaning Philip Aram, but he sent me a message thanking me for the video, and it's like, you can't even detect sarcasm, you fucking asshole. You can't even detect. Please find me that clip. Please. Is it in that thread? It's like, it's unreal, dude. Right, so this is what he had to say about Phil as well.
I think most LCS players really like Philip, believe in him, and that's why we took a stand with him. Like, we show
you fucked him over now.
The leader behind everything, behind the walkout, behind like the meeting is Philip. Phil, the guy who's the head of the Players Association, messaged me after I posted the video and said, thanks for the video, I really appreciate it. So I have no idea why people think that I'm like harming the negotiations.
Bro, you said it's all fake. You said it couldn't be worse. You couldn't have said anything worse. Oh my god, like, Phil, brother, I'm so sorry for you. You couldn't have possibly known play. Like, Doublelift is just a vacuum, man. There's just nothing going on. Like, it's just too much. So anyway, just to wrap this up in a bow, obviously, what do you think happens next? And I'm not saying this is all Doublelift's fault, obviously. They put a statement out today, the LCS Players Association, where you'll notice something. They basically say, yeah, we'll play the rest of the split. It's not going to be a problem. Here it is here. By the way, that's absolutely hilarious. You can see the LCSPA agreeing to restart the season after achieving none of their demands. And this, Ronaldo, yeah, whoa. Anyway, right, LCSPA, Riot, and LCS teams agree on terms to resume 2023 LCS season. Talks to continue on unresolved issues. So in other words, we've still got unresolved issues. We're still going to have talks, but we will. The one thing we had, which was to not play, we're not going to do that, and we are going to play again. So here it is. The LCSPA, Riot, and the LCS teams have come to an agreement to resume the 2023 LCS Summer Split on June 14th. Concessions were made by Riot and teams to ensure a more sustainable NACL future and a more equitable voice for players in their workplace. The LCS players put their own jobs on the line to seek protections for our most vulnerable members and to secure a future for the NA talent pipeline. Today's announcement proves the importance of giving players a meaningful seat at the table. While the agreements fall short of our initially stated goals, Riot has agreed to a series of important changes and is committed to meaningful collaboration with the LCSPA before making future decisions. More than 90% of LCS players voting to walk out was historic. We know solidarity shown by players in the NACL, collegiate and amateur spaces to oppose scabbing was monumental. These unprecedented collective efforts, thanks Doublelift, ultimately led to a historic response from Riot, threatening to cancel the entire LCS season. The concessions below do not return the NACL fully, nor do they provide restoration for the players who lost jobs suddenly and incurred financial hardship, lost visas, or broken leases. The LCSPA is committed to continuing our pursuit of any and all potential paths towards making these players more whole. And by the way, yeah, when those orgs essentially said we're not going to do academy and they told those players we don't need you anymore, yeah, there were multiple players who were like put into these weird fucked up limbos that just happen in esports all the time, where it's like, sorry, you don't have a job, but you made me lease a super expensive house in California that I'm stuck into a fucking 18-month lease of. Yeah, sorry about that. Hopefully you figure it out. Anyway, what we have accomplished is a guarantee by Riot going forward to support the new NACL format and its players. Increased financial support for the NACL, accountability measures designed to protect players working for the new operators in the NACL, and lasting protections for our lowest earning members to mitigate harm in the future. Here is a summary of the terms agreed. $300,000 for the remainder of the 2023 season to be split among the 10 NACL teams. That's what they already had on day one. 50% of all future NACL sponsorship revenue will now be shared by NACL teams. The NACL will have a team participation agreement in 2024. This means the NACL teams will have to abide by minimum standards in order to receive payments or revenue share from Riot. For those who don't know what that is, basically, Riot look at and make sure you're running your team well. They look into all your shit. If you're not hitting basic standards of treatment of players, etc., they can withhold their stipend and withhold the revenue share. That's a standard thing in LCS. A minimum of 30-day severance pay for termination without cause for any player earning up to 1.5 times the league's minimum salary, and 15 days notice for any player competing on a visa. Hardly a big win if you're losing everything, because you've got a visa, and once you lose your job you have to get out the country within 60 days. I know, it happened to me. Players and teams will share equal representation on a committee to determine any future changes. So, okay, we get round the table with Riot. That'll be fun. Teams will take action to ensure all foreign players are mandated healthcare available to them the first day they are in the US. Riot and the LCSPA will sign a memorandum of understanding that establishes meetings and notice parameters to ensure all parties are aligned before any future decisions are locked and communications are made. Thanks again to the LCS community. Blah, blah, blah. In solidarity, everyone but fucking Doublelift. So that's what ended up happening. Essentially, it pretty much ended up where I thought it would, which is you get a little bit of piecemeal stuff. You get some agreements that were ostensibly in place anyway, but now you've got them, written down somewhere. Not that that's going to make any difference. And we are all going to be back to playing. And ultimately, the only people who are going to remember that this happened inside of a year are probably Riot Games themselves, who are going to be absolutely seething, looking to destroy everyone who was involved. So that's it. Doublelift. Union Buster extraordinaire.